now that we have understood how supply and demand are related to each other, how they work and what happens. So now let's go on to see what are called as demand determinants. Demand determinants means what are the factors that are going to determine the demand of a particular product, or what are the factors that affect the demand of a particular product. So whenever we say, if you've heard us, you might have heard this phrase, the demand for this particular product is very high. The demand for diesel has increased. The demand for petrol has decreased. You know, those kind of terms that are used. How do you decide whether the demand has increased? How do you decide what is the factor that affects, or what is the factor that says that the demand for so and so product is high or the demand for so and so product is low? We do not just say it just like that. So it has to have some sort of a backing, right? So the factors that influence the demand of a product are called as the demand determinants. Demand determinants or determinants, the word determinants means what determines that particular factor. So here when we are talking about the demand of a particular product, the factors influencing the demand or the demand determinants. That is what we are going to study in this session. So when we look at the demand determinants, there are 10 major things, factors which affect the demand of a particular product. Or these 10 factors are the factors that make a difference, when we are talking about the determinants that are, or when we are talking about the demand of a particular product. So the first one is price of the product. The price of the product, already we have seen that the demand is inversely proportional to the price of the product. If the price increases, demand will decrease. And if the price decreases, the demand will increase. So the price of the product is inversely proportional to the demand of the product. So here, depending on the price of the product, the demand for the product will be determined. What is the next one? Price of related goods. Price of related goods. Now we know that every good that is in the market will have a complementary good attached with it. It might have a substitute, it might have some sort of accessory, so many other things. For example, when you are talking about condiments, when we are talking about butter we usually buy it when we are using it with bread, correct? So if the demand for bread increases, the demand for the price of the butter will also decrease. But if the demand for bread reduces, then the price of butter will increase. So because they are complementary to each other. If you buy X, then you are going to purchase Y. Not necessarily at all times, but in major cases, what happens is, if you are purchasing X, or if the demand for X is so and so, then its complementary substance, which is Y, also goes up. So if you go into the industry and check this, suppose you are buying a particular kind of a product that is being manufactured by an industry. It will have its own accessories attached with it. So if you are purchasing a car, you can see that the demand for the car will increase depending on the type of accessories that are associated with it. Similarly, when you have a substitute, if at all I take a substitute of a particular product, a very simple example, if the price of tea increases, the demand for coffee will increase. The demand for its substitute will increase. If the rate of tea at any shop or whatever, if the rate of the tea is increased, then the demand for its substitute, nobody will take tea, they will choose coffee or something else. So the demand for its substitute will increase. Okay, so if you are looking at a tab and a laptop, if the price of the laptop continuously starts to increase, then the demand for the tab will increase. Okay, so the price of the substitute, the price of the product will increase the demand for the substitute. So this is one of the ways in which we can determine what is the demand for a particular product. The next one is the level of consumer income. What is the kind of income that the people have? Is it a high class society? Is the income group large income group, medium income group, low income group? What is the gross payment that they are getting? Is it a salaried employee, government employee? All of these things. So to whom you are selling this particular product? Those consumers, we have to look at their income. So if you are talking about, say for example, you are talking about a phone, you cannot be expecting everyone to buy an Apple iPhone. It is not possible for everyone to afford it. There again, it depends on the consumer income. So if the larger portion of the consumers, that is a larger proportion or ratio of the people who are going to use the products, are having very good income, and the product is rated very high, that is priced very high, the demand for the product will increase. And based on that, number of products that are produced of that kind will be more. Okay? So the next one is continuous change in consumer taste and preference. Continuous change in consumer taste and preference. One thing we need to understand is that human beings, our tastes, our wants, everything changes. If you see the kind of style in your clothing, so 10 years ago, there must have been some kind of clothing trend that was in. And 10 years later, today, the trend is different. So because of this kind of change in taste, the demand for a product will change. This you can see very clearly, one in electronic goods, then you can see this in the clothing, in garment industry, textile industry, in the automobile industry. So if you look at the trend of automobiles and cars some 10-20 years ago, the trend was different. And the taste of people was also different. So based on that, the demand has either increased, reduced, or it's at a medium level. It does not matter. But here what we need to understand is that the continuous change in the consumer taste and preference. The continuous change in consumer taste and preference. Earlier, people used to use a landline phone. If they do not have a landline at home, they used to go to a PCO booth. What was the sole purpose? Communication. So people were satisfied even if they didn't have a landline in their homes, or it was not even easily available, they were satisfied, there was no demand. Later on, when the price of that particular product, or the price of purchasing a landline phone, or the ease of getting a telephonic connection became better, the demand for telephone handsets, that is landline handsets, telephone sets, increased. And people started purchasing it, and everyone had a landline at their homes. Next, when we had mobile phone connections. Again, mobile phones were coming into the market back then, and the preference of people was not so much, people's tastes had not increased so much to the mobile phone area until very recently, wherein again the demand for mobile phones increased. Then again we started with basic handsets, then we went on to Android handsets and various other operation systems that are used in manufacturing the phones for ease of work. Now again, you will choose what you want depending on your taste and preference. It is not that there is only one standard type of a product or one standard type of phone and everybody uses the same, right? So depending on the taste and preference of the consumer, again the demand for the product will increase or decrease. Then advertisement, publicity, promotion schemes on the given product. This is a very important factor to determine the demand for a product. If the advertising and marketing is not good, and the publicity that is given and the promotion that is given for a particular product is not sufficient, it may not sell. Now where does this work? If you see that if we are introducing something very new, if you observe an Apple advertisement of any of the Apple products, if you see, they do not have too many advertisements. They have very less advertisements, and each of the advertisements are very short. But here, the kind of promotion that is given to it, they already have a brand in the market. So if an Apple advertisement occurs maybe twice in a day also, it makes no difference. But if you see certain brands, they keep advertising, they keep promoting, and people will buy because they are getting aware of the particular product through the advertisement. Depending on the kind of promotion that is given to the product, based on that, the demand of the product will also increase or decrease. The next is credit facility given to customers. When you are purchasing large products, say for example you want to purchase a washing machine. A fully loaded washing machine, maybe a top load or a front load, depending on the specifications which you like. If you go into the showroom or into the shop and you want to purchase it, and say financially at that point in time you are not fit to purchase the whole thing giving a full payment, what is happening is sellers or the people who are marketing these goods are giving people good credit facility. You pay some down payment, take the product of your choice and pay this in installments. You have all heard of EMIs. Nobody usually purchases a house giving full amount of money. You pay a down payment, start enjoying the privileges of the product and continue to pay it as and when possible when the consumer is in a position to pay, depending on what kind of scheme the consumer has opted for. So again, because of the kind of credit facility available, the demand for a product will increase or decrease. If the credit facility is not very user friendly, not very consumer friendly, then it makes it very difficult for the demand of that particular product to be met. Next is population of the country. How does the population of a country determine the demand of a product? Now, when the population is high, whether the population is high or low, certain products are always going to be used. Now, depending on the kind of people in that population and the number of people in the population, the demand for certain products increase or decrease. Say for example, if it is a small country where the population is quite tolerable and very low, in such kind of cases, you will not see too much of demand for so many of the goods. So you can see that in such kind of countries, they will, if at all there is a slight demand for something very small, maybe a kind of a commodity, maybe spices, maybe some sort of leather, or maybe some kind of an automobile, they will import it rather than producing it. They will import it from outside rather than producing it in-house within the country, because the demand for that particular product is not much for people to fulfill it by creating it within the country. The next is ease of product availability. There is something called as SDE. SDE is something that says the supply of a product, whether it is difficult or easy. So ease of product availability means if we have to procure the product, if it is being imported, how difficult or how expensive is it for us to import it into the country? That is the first. The second thing is, if it is available within the country, how expensive is it for production? And then, if at all the raw materials are not available, how do we procure them? Where is the warehouse? So all these things matter, and based on that, the ease of product availability determines the demand. If a product is easily available, the demand for the product might not be so high. But if a product is difficult, if a product needs to be imported, it has to go through customs, then probably the demand for the product will be very high. Now we see climatic and demographic conditions. What is the climate of the country? So in a cold country, demand for warm clothing might be high. Demand for warm kind of footwear might be high. Whereas if you go to a place which is more tropical in nature and hot, the weather is not very cold or cool, sweaters or warm clothing, the demand might not be as high as compared to the other countries. Then the last is the general economic climate in the country and the national income distribution pattern. So whatever is the general economic condition of the country, what is the annual income that the country what is the annual income that an average citizen of a country is receiving? What is the income of the country? What is the kind of money, what is the kind of economic condition in the country? We say poor countries, we say rich countries, we say countries that are not very well developed when it comes to economy. So, companies are classified based on their economy. Now, depending on the economy of that country, we will be able to determine the demand for certain types of products. So, apart from condiments and apart from the basic needs, we are talking about other products, depending on the climatic conditions of the economy of the country. So, these are the 10 determinants or the 10 factors that determine what will be the demand of a particular product in any country. Now we will move to a concept where we will understand what is the meaning of the term elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand, what is the meaning of this term elasticity? Elasticity means when you have two components, how a particular component responds to the behavior in another component, this will determine what elasticity is, or this is called as elasticity. For example, here we are talking about demand. So when you are talking about a product, you have two components. Either we are talking about the demand and the price. So if I change the price, what happens to the demand? So when you're studying this, we call this as elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand can be defined as the rate at which the demand for a product changes with respect to a change in its price. So how much does the demand increase or decrease if I change the price? How does the demand behave when I change the price of a particular product? So this is given by the ratio where percentage change in the demand to percentage change in the price. Percentage change in the demand to percentage change in the price. This will determine what is the elasticity of demand. It is determined by a term called EP. Elasticity of demand is given by EP. So here you have percentage change in demand to percentage change in the price. This is the ratio, this is the expression for elasticity of demand. So if I change or make any kind of an alteration in the price of a product, how does this determine what happens to the demand of that particular product? This will tell me what is the elasticity of the demand for that particular product. Now there are three cases which we study under this. One, if it is greater than 1, if the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, then the demand is said to be elastic. Elastic in nature means for any small fall in the price, the demand will drastically increase. For any small fall in the price of a product, the demand of the product drastically increases. Where do we see this? When we look at fuel prices. Any small drop in the fuel price, you will see the demand for the fuel increasing. People will buy it in containers also and store it to use later. So here, even if the rate of fuel, diesel or petrol or whatever it is, falls by even the slightest portion, then you see that the demand for that particular product just increases. Next, if you see, if the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, if this ratio is less than 1, the demand is inelastic. What do we mean by inelastic? For any fall in the price, whether it is small or for any small fall in the price of a particular product, there is only a marginal increase in the demand. For example, commodities which we use at home, maybe salt, milk, curds, day-to-day things which you use on a daily basis, what happens is even if the price falls, the demand is almost the same, whether the price is high or low. So even if there is an increase in the demand, you don't see, there is only even if there is a small fall in the price, we only see a marginal increase in the demand for that particular product. Then, if it is equal to 1, then it is called as unit elasticity. That means to say that the fall in the price and the fall in the demand, the fall in the price will cause a fall in the demand. Say for example, if at all a person wants to eat something and there is only one vendor to provide that particular food. If there is a fall in the price, there is no they are equal. It doesn't matter, no matter what the price is, that person is going to purchase the food from there. One way of remembering this is, whoever is the buyer is insensitive to the price. That means the price does not affect the buyer. In any case, the product is going to be purchased. Then the demand is inelastic. If the buyer is insensitive to the price, then the demand is inelastic. So this is one way of remembering it.